starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
All right, welcome everybody to another episode of the Midwest Racks and Rods Outdoor Show. I am your host, Scott Biscabang. Drew is not here today, so you don't have that NPR voice. Tonight you have a voice of a very nasally dude that's got a little bit of getting over a week-long cold here. So, but joining us live in studio here tonight is my co-host, Nick Faber. Nick, what's up?
How's it going?
And then to my left over here we have Isaac Lakich. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, good enough. Lakich.
I've heard it.
It's a couple. No one gets it right. It's good.
So how do you say it?
Lakich.
Lakich.
Yeah.
Well, it's the Lakich lover.
Yeah.
Lakich. I've heard like people could say Lakich.
Yeah.
Lakich.
It's a Serbian name, so it's a little difficult to say for people, but that's all right.
My last name is Biscobang.
Yeah.
So,
Good luck.
Like you got nothing.
Yeah.
And actually, I didn't even realize this, but it's going to pop up on the screen. You guys are flip-flopping in the wrong seats here.
Oh, no.
But that's okay. So when you'll see the names underneath there, this guy over here is Nick, and this guy over here is Isaac.
That works.
But for those of you that watched episodes in the past, you're quite familiar with Nick and that he co-hosts here from time to time. And Brother Drew is also ill, under the weather. It was going to be kind of a shuffle gig here this week on who was going to produce the show because Luke wasn't feeling good, our producer, but he's in ship shape. He's probably feeling the best out of any of us. So we're glad Luke's here and Brother Drew's watching at home. But before we go any further, I just want to mention that this episode is brought to you by our good friends over at Tagged and Bagged. Today's episode is brought to you by Tagged and Bagged, and they specialize in pre-taxidermy packaging for waterfowl. Their mission is to provide hunters with the highest quality packaging products to ensure preservation of a hunter's prize trophies. Tagged and Bagged products are made with the very best materials and are designed to withstand the toughest hunting conditions. Pre-taxidermy packaging is used to preserve your waterfowl before sending it to the taxidermist. At just $20, you receive all the pre-taxidermy packaging that comes with easy-to-follow instructions that will preserve your waterfowl for the taxidermist. Go to taggedandbagged.net. That's taggedandbagged.net for all your pre-taxidermy preservation needs.
I promise your taxidermist will appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And your bird will come out looking better.
Yeah, exactly. So we're happy to be partnered with those guys and good friends of Drop 'em Outdoors, Johnny Bauman and those guys. So great product. Make sure you guys check them out. So like I said, we got Isaac. Isaac, how are you, man?
I'm doing good. It's getting to the last stages of winter here, so I'm
getting fired up.
I'm getting ramped up for open water. It's been a mild winter, so open waters came a lot sooner for a lot of parts of the Midwest here. So I've been out already half dozen times already on some soft water, throwing some long rods around. So it's been fun.
I know you hard water guys are like absolutely hating this, and I myself, I'm missing the ice already.
I don't mind it.
I don't miss it. I know you're like,
I don't.
You had the boat out already too.
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah.
So you've been having fun, but yeah, I'm missing the ice a little bit this year. I only got out a few times this entire season.
I got out once here in Wisconsin on the ice, and I got out when I was on the Minnesota trip. Sorry,
Yeah, the Minnesota
in the
trip,
sleeper shack.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Sure.
but for you walleye guys, you're getting fired up.
Yeah. It's kind of a rare opportunity for us to, just get a couple extra weeks of targeting some, really big pre-spawn fish, that, from now until, spawn, which here in Wisconsin is typically first, it starts usually somewhere around the 6th to 10th of April and kind of goes for maybe a week or two. So, we're getting an extra little bit of time frame chasing those big girls. They're in spots that they kind of normally aren't typically when you would start open water fishing. They're kind of still in their wintering areas right now, but
Sure.
it's just a few extra weeks to try to go out and get one of those, biggest fish of the year kind of thing. I should say heaviest, maybe not the biggest lengthwise, but the heaviest fish of the year will definitely be coming in the next, month and a half.
Sure. All right. Well, Isaac, you've done your fair share of podcasts and stuff, but for maybe our audience, I'm sure there's going to be some viewers that are very familiar with you. I know some of the guys on the team have been following you for quite some time in that, but for those who don't know Isaac, why don't you tell us a little bit about your start into fishing in general? Like, for me, I had a grandfather. I had a dad that hated fishing and that. In fact, he told my mom's dad, my grandfather, that he liked fishing and that when they first started dating. So my grandpa would take him out.
Okay.
My dad was not a fisherman. This was just a ploy to
sure.
to kind of
Schmooze him a little bit. Yeah, got to do it.
And so my dad, he didn't really take us fishing. That was my grandpa. We'd go out to Port Washington, catch it back when you could catch perch right off the breakwaters and stuff like that. No problem. But for you, what was your situation growing up like that?
So we're an outdoor family, kind of through and through. We've done it all over the years. Grew up, walleye fishing in the spring was always kind of the thing, whether it was the Wolf River or the Fox or whatever it might be, with both my grandfather and my dad. As my dad's kind of a very big time, big game guy. He really enjoys doing his, Western hunts. He's been to Alaska and Canada and doing all that kind of stuff. But, in the spring, we never really had that here. There's, turkey hunting and stuff like that. But for the most part, we spent most springs, chasing walleyes on the rivers. And then through the summer, my grandparents lived up in the Minocqua area, northern Wisconsin. So we were up there all summer as I grew up. So it was
great fishing.
A lot of fishing, just simple stuff too. Just, pitching bass under docks or catching panfish and stuff through the summer, catching pike on spinners or whatever it might be. And then, hunting in the fall always was, a big traditional thing. We'd always go up north and do the deer camp up there and stuff like that. So, but yeah, fishing wise, both my grandpa and my dad kind of got me into it and, kick-started that, obsession that I've kind of taken to, the level I have now of, being full-time guide, full-time tournament angler, that kind of thing. So, kudos to them for showing me the ropes and, they taught me how to catch fish, without all the fancy stuff that we got today. So,
right. It's come a long ways.
Yeah. Growing up, we didn't even have a depth finder that worked on the boat practically half the time. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. So, you're going to spots that, dad or grandpa knew from just experience of being there kind of thing. There's a rock pile somewhere around here. Toss a jig around until you snag it and then tell me where it is. So, a lot of fun times over the years, growing up, just doing it, a little bit more traditional style back in the day kind of thing.
Sure. And then for you, what was it that kind of got you to continue progressing down that road and wanting to advance and, even before the tournament stuff, really kind of started to take it serious?
I would say probably, I started fishing tournaments really young, really. Every year we would go up north, kind of in between Christmas and New Year's. We'd always have Christmas break for school, so my parents would take us up there for a week or 10 days or whatever it ended up being. And there was always this one kind of local bait shop that put on a little tournament derby out on this one lake up there, and did that for I don't even know, 5, 6, 8 years or so, from age 8, 10 years old up till, mid high school age. And, it was always fun just kind of having that fun little ice fishing derby. And it wasn't serious. It was, $20 to get into or something like that back then. And, but you had a shot to win. If you won the panfish division as a kid, you'd win, a couple rods or a bucket or whatever,
Right.
just a little nice prize package. So that always kind of got my competitive aspect going. And I did some sports in high school, so I was always kind of a competitive kid. And, I got into high school and actually, started fishing some muskie stuff, probably right towards the end of high school, junior, senior year. Started fishing some just local, like Tuesday night league stuff, actually out on Pewaukee Lake a little bit. They had like Wednesday nighters out there. So me and a buddy of mine, we were 16, 17. So, our boats at the time were, 15-foot little kicker motor, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like not big boats by any means, but we were having fun doing it. And my neighbor, like 2 doors down, he's actually still my neighbor. He was the president of Muskies Inc. So he asked me actually to fish a couple of these, a little bit bigger muskie tournaments. And we went and we actually won one on Pewaukee one year. And then a buddy that I worked with, he was a big muskie guy. So we went and fished some tournaments and we won a couple doing that. So I kind of got into the tournament side of things right towards the end of high school where I was fishing muskies and stuff. And then kind of got out of that a little bit, got done with, high school and life got busy for a few years. So I just wasn't fishing as much, just spending time working and, figuring life out and growing as a, young adult. And then kind of got into the walleye side of things probably back in about 2015, 2016. Had a buddy who picked up a, little bit bigger walleye boat. So we started fishing some, just one-off little bar league stuff. And then that kind of just, sparked the obsession that's turned into a full-time career for me nowadays. We went and had a pretty decent first year. So I was like, I've always loved fishing. I went and bought my own boat and kind of just jumped in head first, said, screw it. I'm going to fish, kind of the local circuits, the Ames and some of the, Sheboygan walleye clubs and stuff like that around the area. And then from there, met some guys and started doing, some of the, team traveling circuits like the Master Walleye Circuit and stuff. And then, kind of just climbed the ladder up to the pro side of things. And that's kind of the, backstory to where I'm at now.
Sure.
Yeah.
How did you get to meet Isaac?
I think through Marshall and Andrew, actually.
Oh, I think it was earlier than that, man. I mean,
might have been.
It's been 10 years probably
Yeah.
that we've known each other. 8 to 10, something like that.
But never really fished together till like 5 or 6 years ago. Jumped in and did some pre-fishing with you and on Bago and then the Bay with Scott and whatnot. So we jumped in and just basically, it was him doing everything. We just kind of watched and learned. It wasn't like we brought anything to the table other than our bodies.
Right. Yeah.
So, what was it that finally got you to like say, all right, I want to do this as a career? Like, I'm gonna.
So,
was that the mentality? Like, I'm gonna go pro here and this. Because it's a pretty cool thing to like, and also very probably somewhat nerve wracking too at the same time.
oh, it was
it was
terrifying.
to go all in on something like that.
So, kind of for me, like the decision to go all in was kind of forced upon me almost. Okay. Not forced, but like it was more so like seize the opportunity type of deal. I'd been fishing, I was working full time. I owned a concrete company with a couple other guys at the time. We were working full time doing that. And then I was fishing like as much of the weekend stuff as I possibly could. Basically every weekend, every summer was some sort of tournament, whether it was bar league or, a traveling circuit or something like that. And 2018 kind of kick-started it all. 2018, I went and fished the Master Walleye Circuit with the kid I was fishing with at the time, Max, and we went and did that. And the first year we did it, we won it Team of the Year, which paid our entries for 2019. Well, 2019 was a really, kind of pivotal year for me where we were learning a lot, getting better and better at, understanding fish behavior and our electronics and stuff like that. So 2019, we actually ended up back to back. And so we had Team of the Year 2 years in a row. which kind of forced me to do it again in 2020. You know, it kind of just kept pushing it forward. Well, then in 2020, we didn't end up winning Team of the Year that year, but I had a runner-up Team of the Year in a different circuit with another buddy of mine, Tristan, and had a couple really good finishes, jumped into like a one-off, like the National Walleye Tour came to Green Bay, and I jumped in it, and I'm pretty sure I was literally the smallest boat in the field fishing that tournament, and I ended up taking second place against all these, you know, top-level national pros. So it was, you know, this big year in 2020, and head-to-head fishing had just came out, and I had gotten a lot of exposure off of that, and all of a sudden it was like coming into the 2021 season, I was like, you know, screw it, I'm going all in. So I dropped $100,000 on a boat, and, you know, put every bit of money I had saved up into, you know, trying to do it and getting, you know, my guide license and my captain's license and all that kind of stuff. And 2021, I went on the head-to-head circuit and ended up winning Angler of the Year that year, and won a tournament, had 2 second places, a third, like in 5 events or something. So it was, you know, this massive outreach of just social media exposure that I had. So then I was able to kind of build my guide business off of that, where, you know, I kind of had this demand of people that wanted to fish with me and wanted to learn how I was, you know, breaking water down and stuff like that. And yeah, it was pretty nerve-wracking because I basically quit my job or sold my shares in the company that I owned. And, you know, I had a 6-month-old at the time. I got 2 daughters that are 4 and 2. So I really just kind of went head first into it. Kind of, you know, the mentality was, you know, I'm going to put everything I got into this. I'm going to put, you know, every hour, every spare hour I got into trying to make this work. And that's, I think, one of the better ways to do it is kind of leave yourself no options. And, you know, it forces you to fish harder. There's more on the line.
Right. Eliminate the plan B.
Yeah.
So to speak.
Yeah.
You know?
It wasn't, there was no backup plan. Like it was
make
like,
or break.
Yeah.
That
like I'm either going to turn this into a full-time career and force myself into the situation. And I mean, over the years, you know, the past 4 years of doing it, you know, full-time pretty much, there's been some hard times, man. I mean, there's been a lot of months where you're sitting there scratching your head like, man, how am I going to make ends meet? How am I going to pay for this or that or the other thing? But, you know, just kind of keep your nose to the grindstone and just never stop working at it. And it, you know, it's all kind of played out in the end. And now, you know, it's a little bit more stable nowadays. You know, you get further through that first 2 years is kind of those are the scary years. Now it's kind of just all under. But
in those 2 years, you still have to make it. It's not like 2 years of like, I can kind of half butt it and I can like take, you know, 20th, 30th, 100th and like, okay, I can still do this. It's like if in those 2 years, let's just say you never made it up in the top 10.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Do you think you'd be where you are right now?
No, not a chance.
That's what I was wondering. Always like, what do you do at that point? Like, okay, I just can't cut it, or I don't have the funds to, or
yeah, it would have been go back to work in construction. Would have been the only option. That would, you know, and that's always been the plan B. I mean, I've come from a trade background, so I know how to work with my hands and stuff. So it's never been like a worry of what happens if I fail, but it's kind of just never been like I've locked myself into a mindset of like I'm not going to let that happen. And you know, hard work, determination, and just perseverance through, you know, like I said, putting your nose to the grindstone and just keep on keeping on, you know. Yeah. You're going to have tough days. That's just life. It's, you know, it's not for the majority of people out there, it's not a cakewalk in life. You're going to have rough times, you're going to have good days, and you just got to, as long as you can kind of keep your mental, you know, positivity through the crappy days, like it seems like then it just kind of all plays out,
So would you say, I mean, we talk in terms of job, right? Mm-hmm. This is your job. Some people say, well, job, that means just over broke.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
But if it's your career, if this is the path you want to go down, would you say that you have any sort of different feelings about fishing now that this is your job to fish? Whereas some people are like, you know, find something that you like and love to do, and it'll never be work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's for lack of better words, a crock of shit. But yeah, it's work, man. Like I've turned a passion into a business kind of thing, and for me personally, like there's not a lot of days where when I have free time, especially during my mid season, you know, when I get into, you know, my main season for fishing is, March through August. And then I go hunting. I do a lot of hunting guide stuff in the fall. But like my mid-season, kind of a fishing, like there's not a lot of days if I have a off day where I'm going fishing. So it's definitely changed fishing for me, where I do view it more as a job and more as work. And I shouldn't say I don't go fishing for fun. I still do, but I definitely don't target walleyes as much. When I have off days, I'll go and mess around with some panfish or go chase pike or bass or do something that's just different a little bit.
Sure.
So that's kind of changed. Whereas, as I was coming up, every spare day I had, I went out and chased walleyes because you were trying to learn the species and learn, the behavioral aspects and what do they do on a high pressure day versus low pressure and, all that kind of stuff. So, it's definitely a job. And it's a job that's far more demanding than people think. They see, you got a 6-hour guide trip or 8-hour guide trip, or personally, I run a lot of full day trips, which push 10, 12 hours a lot of times. And those guide trips and the time on the water, it's 8 hours on the water, but there's an hour and a half, 2 hours before every day and an hour and a half, 2 hours after every day of, just prep work and getting stuff ready and making sure all your stuff's organized and you got bait for the day or whatever it is.
Fixing lines, getting new baits tied on, thinking about the next day weather, drying out clothes.
Yep, calling the next client for the next day, telling them where they're going to be meeting you, because fishing Green Bay, I mean, it's a big body of water. It's 150 miles long by, 10 to 15 miles wide for pretty much the entire, system. So a lot of days where you think that you're going to be having them, going off the west shore, somewhere out of Swamico, Kano, or Marinette, and all of a sudden you look at the wind forecast and it switched. Now, hey, sorry guys, we're going off the east shore tomorrow because otherwise we're not going to be fishing. Like there's, we're fishing out of big boats in terms of, the consumer market. I mean, 20, 21 foot fiberglass boats, big walleye boat, but in terms of handling, big water where you're consistently dealing with, 2 to 5 foot waves, like you have to pick your days. And unfortunately you end up having to cancel some trips every year and that kind of stuff. So it's a constant balancing act of, making sure that everything flows. And then I got to fit my schedule with, the tournaments that I still do, because I still do 6 to 10 tournaments a year, so I got to sneak those into my schedule. And it's a job. It's a full-time 24/7 365 ordeal. I mean, it's every single day I'm dealing with questions about trips from clients or inquiries from new clients and all that stuff. So
but is it still a love? I mean,
I wouldn't trade it. Like
I mean, if you didn't love it, then maybe just go back into construction.
Right. Go work a 9 to 5.
Fish for fun.
Right. Yeah. No, I love it, man. I mean, I truly do, and I think the love of it for me has changed. It used to be me. I couldn't wait to go catch that next fish and see the next big one come over the gunnel and get in the net. But now for me, it's, watching my clients learn that stuff and teaching them, how to, become better anglers. And that, I think that's, I kind of, when I came out of high school, one of the only jobs I ever really looked at, or thought about doing seriously or going to college for was actually being a teacher. And I've kind of found my niche in the, fishing industry with being able to teach guys like how to just better themselves and learn more stuff. And I think that's what makes me a really good guide is, I'm not just there to put guys on fish, let them catch some fish, reel them in, net them, and take some pictures for them. I'm trying to actually teach those guys what's going on at that specific moment so that when they go back and go fish by themselves, they can be better anglers and have better success.
That's a big thing that I brought up too on a podcast 2 or 3 ago when we were talking about guides and everything else. And I said, I think the thing that a lot of people believe is that when they go with a guide, what they're feeling in that trip is you're going to take me to fish and I'm going to slam more fish than I have in my entire life. That's what everybody thinks. I'm paying you money. You better get me like 100 walleyes tomorrow or I'm going to think this is a dud. After doing enough fishing and being with enough guides, personally, I've been with Isaac. I paid for trips to go with Isaac for smallies, for walleyes, and other guides for muskies. The biggest thing is, and I said that people need to look at is you're going with these people, yes, to catch fish. They want to catch fish. Any guide you go with wants you to catch your biggest fish, wants you to catch the most fish. They're trying. That's what they want. And sometimes the weather doesn't cooperate, and sometimes it's just a bad day. I mean, you could have the perfect weather, and it sucks, and there's nothing around it. The guide wants you to catch fish. At the same time, if you're not catching fish, and the biggest thing I learned from going with guides is drill them. If the fishing's slow, what do you do on this day? What do you do on this day? Where are you fishing this time of the month? If you're not going to catch a bunch of fish, it happens with a guide or by yourself. But when you go with a guide, drill them for questions. What baits do you use? This, drill them. And I said almost every guide will.
Yep.
They're not going to give you your hot spot. I'm not going to give you pinpoints and, go here or here. Some might say like this or that. Go with them and learn from them. That's the thing. They're teaching you. You're going with a teacher to learn to be better. They want you to catch fish, but they're there to teach you so you can become better. So when you're done with this trip and the next time you go fishing, I want you to catch fish and be successful and say, I caught more fish today because the last time I was with him, I learned this tactic and look at me now.
Right.
Yeah. That's what the good I would say that's what the really good guides do. They're going to convey the information on how to better yourself more so than just, hey, I'm taking you out and you're going to go rip some fish off this spot kind of thing. Like, the really good guides are going to, teach you a cadence difference, hey, like, you've maybe thrown a jig in a plastic before, but maybe you should try doing it this way. Or maybe, I'm going to show you a bait maybe you've never used before, and you're going to be able to take that and put that into your arsenal to just make you a better angler. And that's where like for me personally, a lot of my clientele base has been guys where, they're not necessarily going to be the guy that books a trip every single year. And I'm totally fine with that. Like a lot of guides, they really rely on repeat customers, repeat business. And like I have my repeat guys that, I'm so thankful for. But I get a ton of guys that come with me one time. They want to learn what I'm doing, whether it's with electronics or baits or presentations. And I treat them the exact same way that I treat my everyday guy or my year-to-year guy, where I'm trying to give them everything I possibly can. Like I try to be as selfless as possible. I'm not trying to protect stuff and stuff like that. I do my best to preach, selective harvest when it comes to, keeping fish and on which fish we should or shouldn't keep, because there's more people out fishing nowadays than ever. And it's all about, for me, it's just I want to convey as much positive information to people as possible, whether it's through podcasts or YouTube shows or TV shows or, tournament stuff, all of it. Like I'm always trying to just, be as open and forthcoming with the information as possible. And I hope that like the guys that I take and people that I'm, exposing the information to respect the resource because of that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you had mentioned about like with live scope and stuff. I mean, isn't that one of the big things that you do is you're teaching people the electronics and how live scope really works and things like that, right?
Yeah. That's kind of, I mean, when live scope first came out, that was like really my breakout like way to guide was I was working with guys on how to understand their live imaging systems, whether it was, Garmin, Lowrance, Humminbird, all that kind of stuff. I was teaching them like how to set it up, how to get their settings set right, what they were looking at, what they were looking for, and that kind of thing. And, the biggest thing that I've kind of become as an advocate, for live imaging, I mean, I love it. I love using live imaging to catch fish. The biggest thing is it has made lakes monumentally smaller than what they ever were before. There was so much water that was just untapped that you couldn't see what was going on down there. And now we know what's going on down there. And we understand that, there's a lot more fish that we're able to catch that we weren't able to before. There's fish, especially in open water when you're talking, 15, 20 feet of water plus when those fish start suspending, where back in the day, your options to catch those fish are pretty limited. And whereas now it's a little bit easier and more accessible to do so. And because of that, I my personal belief is, us as sportsmen and conservationists, because that's what outdoorsmen really need to be at the core. We need to take it upon ourselves to be responsible and not abuse it is the biggest thing for me, at least.
How would you say live scope in particular has revolutionized fishing, walleye fishing, or just fishing in general?
I think it's made the average angler about 10 times better than they were 10 years ago. The average guy with a base live scope setup is way more effective and, consistent in catching fish than they were 10 years in the past. We're living kind of my lifespan specifically. I'm in my late 20s now, 28, 29 this year. I've grown up with, kind of that transition of, pre-cell phone era to cell phones to, fish finders that were literally just depth finders to now fish finders that are telling you, where fish are and all that kind of stuff. And, the biggest thing is it's just going to come down to us being, respectful of the resource and making sure that we're, selective harvest is the biggest thing. Walleye fishing specifically, everyone loves eating walleyes. I love eating walleyes. Like they are delicious. They taste wonderful. Yeah, yes. Yeah, they're great. I love eating walleyes. I love eating panfish, all that kind of stuff. And the thing is so does everyone else. So the best thing for, the resource and stuff like that is just making sure that you're tossing back the fish that are most likely females because they're the ones that do the most reproduction. There's tons of males in every system. For every system, out there, there's probably, statistically speaking, more males than there are females. So those male fish typically are 15 to 21 inches or so. Once you pass that 21-inch threshold, it just seems like, of the fish that I've experienced cleaning in my life, more and more of them are females. So, for me personally with my clients and stuff like that, I really encourage those guys, pending one's not deep hooked and, mortally, bleeding or something like that. Yeah. Like we're going to let all of our fish over that 21-inch mark go to try to keep it sustained for, future generations, my kids, grandkids, that kind of stuff.
Sure. And like you had mentioned, you're going to be 29 here. Have you noticed a difference in just say like the last 10 years in the numbers of walleye in the areas? I mean, I know fishing Green Bay it's like the Mecca.
Yeah, it's definitely.
So we just talked about this just before the show.
Yeah. I mean, Green Bay is like top 5 walleye fisheries in the country by far. Like it's an amazing system. It's, very big, a lot of tributary rivers where these fish are spawning and stuff like that. But, I've seen, I think, a decrease in big fish. Now, how much of it is directly related to fishing pressure versus, just a cyclical type thing where, all these systems, bait rises, fish, the populations of bait and fish are constantly, same thing with like rabbits and coyotes. They're, varying and stuff like that in certain areas and stuff like. So how much, modern technology has really affected it? I'm not a biologist. I've talked to quite a few. I don't really know, for a fact how much it's affecting it. I would say over the last 5 years, specifically since LiveScope has came out, I have noticed fish behavior change. So maybe not necessarily numbers of fish is changing, but fish are becoming more difficult to catch. It seems like when you're even in an area with a lot of fish, a bite window is going to be a massive thing where as opposed to you were picking fish off all day and then you'd have an hour that was really good. Now you're catching 1 or 2 all day. And then that hour you might pick up enough to fill your limit kind of thing.
Sure.
So, the fish are smart, right? Everyone thinks that they're, it's a fish. It's not that intelligent, but they definitely know when the boats are around. They know when they're being casted at multiple times in a row. In clear bodies of water like Green Bay, they are fully aware of like a lot, like noise, sight, everything. Like it's pretty insane. LiveScope's taught me so much. In most fish, like especially big walleyes, like they will almost never, if you're making any noise or anything like that, they will never close the distance to within 50, 60 feet of the boat. Like the split second that boat hits like that 50, 60 foot mark, if that trolling motor's running, if you're banging around, stomping around, those fish are gone. Like they're just going to turn around and swim away because they know, that's a threat kind of thing.
Yeah, so, sure.
And I think a lot of that's came from, on Green Bay, there's just more boats out there than there ever has.
I was going to say, for anybody watching that isn't familiar with what like the run is like up in Green Bay, paint us a picture
of
what that looks like in terms of boats and things like that.
Yeah, if you're in the Fox River in the spring, man, if you're in the Fox in March, I mean, on a weekend, on a Saturday, there's 400 boats on the river. Like, so it's combat fishing in terms of you're, battling it out with 399 other boats out there with, 2 to 3 people in it.
I've heard guys talk about like you could literally walk across.
Oh yeah.
Jump from boat to boat.
There's definitely certain days where if you asked people and you wanted to get from one side of the river to the other, you could probably do it. Yeah. Like just by being like, hey, give me a ride to that boat. And then he's going to give me another ride. Like, it's pretty insane. Like, and it's kind of always been like that. Even back when I was younger, De Pere, the walleye run, like it was always busy. Like the launch was always full every Saturday and Sunday. Like it's been like that. I just think that nowadays, with the amount of information through podcasts and YouTube and TV shows and stuff like that, the average angler is and electronics, the average angler is just more effective at catching them. So whereas, out of that 400 boats, 1 in every 10 boat was catching them because they figured out that little nuance. Yep. Now you got every boat knows that nuance, and they're, instead of that one boat catching 20 fish, now you got 10 boats catching 2 or 3 apiece kind of thing.
And even social media too. I mean, for that matter, I mean, you look at back when Lake Link was a thing, everybody thought that was the worst thing in the world. I mean, now I take a post on Instagram and I post it. You can, if anybody knows the Fox River and you see the building behind me, the tree, the park, the launch, they're like, I know right where they are. I don't have to do anything. I can go right to that spot and catch fish because I seen it.
Yep.
Back before cell phones, you had to call your buddy like, hey, were you up there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was up there. I was catching them over here, blah, blah.
The information travels so much faster now. Like when that bite goes, or wherever you are, whatever you're doing anywhere across the country, like when the bite's hot, you know about it within a couple days. Like you're on top of a good bite a lot quicker than, back in the day. It was, someone's, John Gillespie went up and he pounded fish last weekend. Well, then you get there and the bite's done
because he aired it already a week,
10 days later.
Right. Yeah. But nowadays you got 500 friends on Facebook and you see a story from today of your buddy catching fish and you can be there the next day.
Yep.
So
or that night.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
3 hours.
Yep.
It's not a far drive.
Even my social media is small, nothing compared to his. If I post like fish, I bet you I'll have 10, 15 guys after I get done catching walleyes. Guys will hit me up, message me, asking where I was, how was the bite, what were you using, what were you doing? And now I always try to give the information, help out friends and stuff, the couple people that asked me. But again, they wouldn't have known that without social media. You take that away back in the 90s, I caught fish. Now my buddy would be like, oh, were you up there? It goes to 3 people. I posted on my story, there's over people that actually watch and like it and look at it. There's over 100, 200 people that just seen it. And the thing is too with social media is, you see it on mine because I posted in real time. Now you take it and you forward it to 10 of your friends. He forwards it to 5 of his friends. It just hit over 1,000 people that just saw my little post about me catching fish in the pier. And boom, you got over 1,000 people that now know that that's where the bite was. Yep. You take that completely away, who knows?
Right.
Nobody.
Yeah, I lack on the social media side of things. I try to, if I'm on a good bite personally for me, with clients and when I've got guys that are paying me, I kind of try to stay a little bit quiet about it for at least a little bit. Like, most pictures that I'm posting, they're a week or 2 after it happened. I'm not posting it day of. Yeah. Very rarely. Some of my stories are obviously day of kind of thing, but I try to kind of keep it, at least where I'm fishing, just because, my boat sticks out like a sore thumb. I got 21-foot white tiller with 2 power poles on the back. There's no one else in the North Country that has that. So I get singled out and I get followed a decent amount. And it is what it is. It comes with the territory of being a guide and, a little bit more prominent in the industry. And I'm not complaining about it whatsoever because most people are very, courteous on the water. I very rarely have dealt with guys, getting too close kind of thing. Guys will push in on you a little bit. But, I mean, if you're spring fishing and Wisconsin and you're expecting to have water to yourself, you're a little bit high, man. Like it's not gonna happen.
And that's why I started doing my own personal posts now. I especially for the fall last year, I was getting really, because it was such a short run last year in De Pere. We had like a week, I'd say 10 days max of like stupid good fishing in the Fox River where I was.
Which is pretty typical though too. Like people think that like the spring is always really good for the entirety of the spring, but man, it's ebb and flow. It's a lot of days of grinding and putting it, you're going to put a lot of hours in to get 20 fish.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden you hit that 1 day, 2 day, 3 day window where all of a sudden they just go off and it goes crazy, and you can never time it. As a guide, I wish I could be like, yo, this is the 3 days.
Yeah.
It's gonna be.
I love when people are like that. When's the best week? I want to book a trip with you.
Right.
When's the best day? It's like, well, the last 2 years it's been here, but it also is all, especially walleyes in the spring, weather.
Yeah.
Water temp, weather.
Yep. Yeah,
it's not just, you can't just go pan fishing and just nail walleyes every day. It comes down to that weather factor, the temperature of the water. And then the thing is, like this past year, I was out there and I was sitting there. We caught a couple walleyes. They were still full. And I called Andrew and I said, the next 2 days, probably Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I said, are going to be the best days for this run. I can tell you right now. We went up there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, slammed them. I went up there Thursday with Joel, and we were catching everything spawned out. That's how quick it happened. We were nailing them, and I saved all my posts, and I waited, and I posted it, and people are going up. And they were still catching fish, don't get me wrong, but they were all spawned out, and that's how quick it happened.
Right.
So it's just, when you go, you go.
Those big girls in the spring, I mean, and this just goes to fish travel in general, the amount of distance that those fish can cover in such a short time frame is absolutely astronomical. It is pretty much unstudied, like when you start really diving into the biology side of things on like how far can these fish really go and how fast they can do it. But some of the studies that have been done and some of the stuff that I've read, I mean, there's times where fish will go from the lake up into the river and back into the lake in like a 2 days time frame.
Yeah.
You're talking, 48 hours, maybe 72 hours, and a fish is traveling a grand total of 25, 30 miles in that time frame.
That's crazy.
And people always, they think it's crazy, but, man, to me, it makes a lot of sense, especially when you're dealing with, river fish, for example. If a fish goes upriver, obviously it's going to take a lot longer. But then once it wants to leave the river, if that current's moving at 2 miles an hour, that fish can just sit in there and float and go 10 miles in 5 hours.
Yeah. I've seen them floating too. After they're spawning, they're done rolling stuff. I've seen big walleyes into pier during the day. All of a sudden I look a foot down on the water. Here's this big 26 to 30 inch walleye not even moving, just looks like it's dead.
Yeah.
And I know no one caught it because there was no one up there. It's just she did her thing and they're exhausted because one, they probably got caught once or twice, so they're already stressed out. Two, they did their thing. I mean, think about when a normal woman gives birth, they're not running around the next 2 days running sprints.
No.
They're like, I just want to go home.
No, they want a piece of pizza.
Yeah,
they're
exactly.
They're going to take the first free meal they can get.
Well, after the first day, then they go down, then they'll start eating again. But it's that's the thing people don't understand. That's why when that spawn actually goes on, from what I've seen, there's days when the spawn ends that you really don't catch a few, and then 2 days later, everybody's catching spawned at once because they finally got their everything back. They're normal. They're swimming. Okay, now it's feed bag time.
Yep.
And that's the thing too. And that's one thing I noticed, on the Wolf River, especially when that spawn, when they're coming up, you're going to get them. But then I've seen it so many times.
There's a lull, when they're actively spawning, and usually on Green Bay, I've always said man, it's one of the best time frames to catch a true giant. You're one of your best shots is always between that 5th and 15th of April. That's one of your best time frames to catch a giant.
Yep.
But it can also be one of the most grindy, you're going to put in a 10-hour day for a 30-minute bite window. But in that 30-minute bite window, you could go 5 casts in a row with a fish over 28 inches, and they're all going to be 10 and a half, 12 pounds.
Yeah.
It's, fishing is all about timing, like we were saying. It is so much about just being there at the right time. Yep. And, I'm very fortunate to be on the water, 200 days a year. So I tend to luck into those right times more often than a lot of guys. But, a lot of people don't understand how many hours really go into each big fish. Every year I'm on the Green Bay, 120, 130 days a year. And then I guide other places, the other 50, 70, whatever it is. Out of those 100 days a year, an upper echelon, kind of the mark to meet in Wisconsin's that 30-inch 10-pounder.
Yep.
I'm doing this full time, and I see 25 to maybe on a really good year, 40, 50 of those fish a year. So that's one of those types of fish every 3 full days of fishing. Yep. So you're talking about a 30-inch fish pretty much every 30 hours-ish of fishing, give or take.
Yeah.
It's not a high success rate. No. Like, so for the people out there that are watching, they're like, man, I really want to go catch my 30. You got to put the time in.
Yeah.
Like,
he's scrolling through some pictures here.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see some of them.
Oh, yeah.
And like, if you just went on your, like,
yeah. Oh, yeah. If you go scroll through my Instagram page, you're like, oh, this guy's slamming big ones all the time. Yep. And it's like, yeah, what you don't realize is
it's snippets of time.
Yeah. I went, that fish specifically, that's a really big Mississippi River fish, summertime. That was like 28 incher, but we fished like 9-10 hours that day for that fish.
For one. Yeah. And that's what people don't get. They see that and they're like,
size.
oh my God, they nailed them that day. And it's like, no. Like even to Pier, I've had those nights where I catch like a couple big ones. Like, how many did you get? I'm like, we caught like 20, 30. That's it? Like, yeah, we got one big one though. Like, that's the thing. Like, and then there's nights like, I had a time with Nick. There was a big storm coming in Nick Radosta. We were out there. The storm was rolling in. It was going to be hailing. I took a half day and we flew up there. And I'm like, I would usually catch him at night. He caught his first 28 and then he caught a 31.
Yep.
In 2 hours.
Yep.
We caught it. I went up the next 3 nights in a row and didn't catch one over 23.
Like
didn't catch one over 23.
Yeah.
That's so one afternoon before a storm came in, bam, he nails a 28 and a 30 and then a bunch of 25s to 27 and a halves that we hit.
Yeah.
And then 3 days in a row after that, I went every single night, didn't touch a 28.
Yeah.
You got two in 2 hours.
Yeah. That's just the way it goes, man. When they want to fire, they're going to fire. That's northern, that's Green Bay for you. Like when I don't say it's feast or famine because almost every time you go to Green Bay, you're going to catch fish. Like you're going to have a good time on Green Bay. It's a very consistent, I'm going to go out and catch, 15, 20 fish a trip. That's very common. But those days where you really luck into that, 5 fish over 25 or 5 over 28, that's once every 2 weeks. Yeah. And it varies. If you get on the right bite or the right exact time frame, or you really figure out a bite window where you know that, for the next couple days, you're probably, you're going to catch all your big ones between this time and this time. You can get strings of weeks where it's really good.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's not. It's a lot more work than people think.
Yeah.
They see the social, like we were saying, they see the social media posts, and all of us that post on social media, we're kind of all vibing and scrounging for clicks and likes.
Yeah.
So you're posting your biggest fish you caught that week, not all of them.
Right.
And I always tell people, if you're looking for that one, you want a 28, 30, you want to do a stringer or whatever, Lake Erie.
Yeah.
Book a trip. Go to Lake Erie. Not saying you can't get it eventually. You're not, in my opinion, from what I've seen over the years that I've done it personally, you're not going to fish an entire season in Green Bay during the spawn. Let's just say you're not going to get 330s. A normal person, a non-guide.
The average guy that's going on the weekends, probably not.
Even the weekdays, I'd say, because I go on the weekdays too, and I have never had a year.
If you spend 10... I would say, if you are on the bay, you need to spend in the spring a solid 10 full days, 100 hours.
Yeah.
It's probably about 100 hours per 30 incher.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. Because I put about 2,000 to 2,500 hours on the water a year, and we get 20 to 25 of them.
Yeah.
So, that I would say that's a fair ratio to put, but
even that's good if you actually end up doing that.
Right.
Again, for 330s, I've never had in a year where I've caught 330s. I've only caught 2, I think, or 3 ever in my life while fishing up there.
Right.
And I fish there a bunch. Most people don't have what I have. I can.
In the spring, that's tough.
Oh, yeah. That's what I'm saying. Spring,
Catching that caliber of fish in the spring is really tough.
Yeah.
In the summertime, totally different. When we're fishing in late July into August, when you're fishing, summertime fish when they're aggressive, it's not unusual to get 10 or 15 fish over 28 in a day.
But they want those big fat bellies.
Totally different.
They want those footballs for the pitcher.
Those fish are coming to the river for one reason. They're there to spawn.
Yeah.
They're not coming in there to eat. They're not coming in there to feed. They might feed on the way back down when they're post-spawn. Yeah. But when they're pre-spawn, those truly big upper echelon fish that you're talking about, those 30 inches, those are 20 to 25-year-old fish on Green Bay.
Yep.
And they're there for one reason only. They're swimming out of that lake when the timing is right. They're spawning and they're leaving. They're not hanging out. You have to hit it so perfectly to get that to happen.
Yeah.
And that's what this misconception of spring fishing is, yes, it's your best shot at a big fish, but honestly, it's probably one of the tougher times of the year to catch them.
Yeah, it is.
Big fish.
Yes. Yeah. Your pre-spawn fish is the toughest to get a big one.
Yeah.
Like I spent 3 days this last weekend on the Mississippi River. We spent like 36 hours on the water, and we never touched a fish over 25 inches. And it's a great fishery. Like, they're there, and we saw them. Like, we had them on live scope. We were watching them chase our baits, and they don't want to eat. Yep. They're not thinking about that, right?
Because they're thinking ice fishing, tip up something lazy and slow.
Yeah, well, and yeah, that's a little different in the river, but like, yeah, they just don't want to eat. They might eat once every 5 days because they're full. They ate all fall. Yep. That's why the fall bite is, your late summer and fall bite is like your best feeding bite. That's when you're going to catch a lot of good fish. Your springtime is, you're going out not hoping necessarily, but like, you're going out with kind of the mindset of, I'm going to put as much effort in as possible for that 1 or 2 special bites. Yep. And they only happen every couple years. Yep. Like, I mean, I like that 12-pound mark for a walleye is a hell of a mark to beat. Like, that's a big fish. Yeah. That is a really big fish, especially Green Bay. Like, 12 pounds on Green Bay is a very, very big fish. I only see, like I said, I mean, I'm guiding every day from about March 10th all the way through May 25th on the bay, and we'll see maybe 3 or 4 that break 12 pounds. Like, and there's a chance at a bigger one than that. Like, you could hit 14, but like, it's a couple fish in 2 months span. Yep. Like,
sure.
But that's what makes them special. Yeah. Like, it's like that 200-inch deer, that 180-inch deer. Yeah. You don't kill 100 unless you got the mecca of deer hunting.
Yeah, I mean, you got the food plots, you got the land and everything. A normal person that doesn't own land or like has permission on land, it ain't happening.
No. Luck.
Yeah, a lot of luck. And same with fishing, too. Yeah. It's the same thing. It's luck.
Right place, right time.
I've been 4 times in a row going at night, and it's all 18 to 23 inches. And then also I go 2 nights straight, and I can't catch anything under a 23, like nothing under.
Yeah. Fishing's wild. Like, it's...
Because you can't target a specific fish.
No, not that time of the year. No. During the summer, like, when we go and fish, like, northern Green Bay, when we're fishing, like, kind of the Oconto-Sturgeon Bay line north... That's a lot of big fish. Yeah. That's, midsummer up there, mid-July all the way through the end of August, and into September even. That section of the bay hosts big fish. That's where the biggest fish in Green Bay live. And if you're out there in the summertime and you land on the right group of fish on the right day, man, it's something special. Like, those are the days. I live for August fishing on Green Bay. Okay. That's like, if you ask me my favorite walleye fishing of the entire year, it's going to be August, in probably the 2nd or 3rd week of August on Green Bay. That's the best time frame of the entire year.
Well, I'm thinking here, I mean, if you're up for it, I think we could take a quick intermission.
Sure.
Yeah.
And maybe come back and we'll talk some tips and tricks a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll talk about, some of your favorite
techniques
and things like that.
Yeah, that'd be big.
We don't want to give too much away. We want you guys to hire Isaac.
Yeah, book a trip.
I was gonna say, book a trip if you really want to see it. Again, I've booked it myself, and I'm friends with him, by the way. I'm friends with him, and I book trips. That's the thing. People think like, oh, you're going with Isaac for free. I'm like, no, I pay him to go with him. Like,
I charge him the friends tax. He's actually double price.
Yeah, I know, because he has to listen to me the whole damn day.
I would totally.
He's got to listen to me all day long. He's like, oh man, I'm like, if I got to do this, how long do you want to go? Like 2 hours? Because that's all I can handle. Yeah. The other thing when we do come back, I'd like to bring up was tagged walleyes and like melt tagged walleyes and stuff like that. What he's seen, we'll bring that up later.
Well, sure. But I think maybe we could start with that. You want to start with that?
Yeah, well, I mean, even we could. I mean, finish it right now. It's a quick one. Like, how often do you see it? That's the biggest thing. Was
go ahead.
Depends on where you are.
Think so? Yeah. Have you ever got a lip tagged one?
I've never got a lip tagged one. Those ones are all tagged up in Michigan.
Okay.
So they tag a lot of those up in like Little Bay to Knock, Big Bay to Knock. Mm-hmm. I've never personally caught one. I know I've been around people that have caught them or been out the same day where somebody's caught them. In Wisconsin, they do the back tags up by the dorsal fin.
Do they do money on those? I heard someone say that, and I mean, I've only caught a handful.
One time.
I don't know.
Okay.
Most of it's just DNR research, right?
Yeah.
So the biggest reason they're tagging fish, and this is for everyone, is when you catch a tagged fish, you're supposed to kind of take a little bit more time with that fish and measuring it and making sure you get some accurate measurements and where you caught it and stuff like that. And then if you take the tag number off that fish, you can send that tag number into the DNR along with all the information that you recorded, and then they'll send you back the information on that fish on where it was last recorded or caught or when it was tagged and all that stuff. And they'll give you the growth rates and some of that kind of stuff, which is really cool to see.
It is, yeah. It's like a banded goose. I mean, and the thing is, a lot of people don't see them. A lot of people don't know walleyes have them.
Yep.
Especially in the Bago system.
And a lot of times they get like really mossy.
They do. You will not see them. Even the one that I caught with you.
Yeah.
I did catch one with him on a trip, by the way.
Yep.
I caught one, and I remember sitting there, I was taking pictures, and Isaac's like, dude, it's tagged. And I'm like, I literally was like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
It was right next to that back little like dorsal without the pins on it.
Yep.
And he wiped it off. I'm like, I would have never, if he would not have said there was a tag in that fish, I would have let it go.
And how big was it, would you say?
So it's like, they're like maybe like an inch and a half, 2 inches long. They're yellow here in Wisconsin, and they're really thin. I mean, like pencil lead diameter, maybe a little more.
Yeah.
It's small. Like it's like 18 gauge wire.
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically.
If you're not looking, you will not, especially if it's covered in algae. A brand new tag that was done this year, but the one that I had was completely green.
Yeah,
you would have never
like
seen it.
3 years since that fish had been tagged.
Yeah.
And it's like right behind the dorsal fin?
It's
so
you got, like,
right where the dorsal kind of comes down.
Yeah.
Like basically right after the top of the dorsal fin, like right at the base of the dorsal fin. So like if you were hooking like a shiner minnow on a tip up, right there.
Exactly.
Right
Yep,
there
right
is where the tag is.
And look, I'm telling you, because if you don't
There's a
look,
lot more that are tagged than you don't realize.
Yeah, and people don't see it.
I get a lot of them. Like
I mean, you could have just taken it as part of the vein, and the dorsal fin is
you might not even see
because it'll lay flat. Like mine was completely flat on the fish.
Just laid right on the along its
and they totally like they get like slimed up
they
and
do.
like algae and stuff grows on it, so it
blends right in with the green back.
You won't see it.
No.
So yeah, it's cool. I mean, different places I've been. Mille Lacs. I go to Mille Lacs every year. I guide for about a month up in Minnesota for like the last week of May through like mid-June. I'm up on Mille Lacs or Leech Lake, and Mille Lacs does a ton of tagging. And like in a month of fishing up there, like we'll get like 15 to 30 fish that have tags in it.
It's so cool to get one too. Honestly, it's like shooting a banded goose, a banded duck. It's not a thing that's very common. So when you get one, honestly, it's like, in my opinion, it's like shooting a 150 plus inch buck, because it's not something you see every day, especially if you're not on the water every day. I mean, I've been walleye fishing like him on the Wolfer my entire life, and I think I have 3 to my name.
Yeah,
that I've ever got.
They're pretty rare in the Winnebago system. I don't think they tag them as much. They do a decent amount of tagging.
We had 2 in 1 year actually there on the Wolf.
Yeah,
down below the Rat.
Sure.
But we gotta take our break.
All right. Sounds good. Guys, stick around for a little bit here. We're going to be right back. Give us about 5 minutes here. And we're going to get into some tips and tricks with Isaac. So if you guys want to learn a little bit more about that without giving too much away, because he still wants you to
ask questions. Ask what you want to hear. What do you want to see?
Exactly.
Ask it on there. What do you do on this body of water, rivers,
We did have a few questions here, too, and we'll get to some of those when we come back here as well. So.
Absolutely.
All right. If you have any other questions, guys, start chiming in right now in the chat line, and we'll be right back. All right, guys, we're back from our little brief intermission there. We've been drinking some beers and cocktails, so, you know, when nature calls.
Drain the main vein.
It's Thursday night in
Well, I
Wisconsin.
said nature calls. You got to go to draining the main vein. But we want to welcome you guys back. For those of you guys that have been sticking around here with us, we're joined again by Isaac Lakich from Isaac Lakich Fishing.
Yeah. Yep. Simple. I didn't want to name it something anything crazy.
All right. It's Isaac and he's fishing.
Right.
Doing a lot of it. But Luke, what did you got there for us? You had said something.
Yeah, we got a question earlier from Steve Schwartz from Steve Schwartz Inc. Isaac, what's your favorite whitetail game? Bow, rifle, etc. Please expand.
Oh man, dude, I'm a big bow hunter. I love archery season. I've done rifle, you know, and been probably actually more successful with my rifle over the years, just due to the fact that's, you know, a little bit more accurate, a little more range, that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm a big bow hunter. I like anything bow hunting, spot and stock. Big elk hunter. Kind of got into elk hunting through my dad. Maybe I think I went on my first elk hunt. I was like 15 years old or so. That was a rifle hunt, but I went on a couple bow hunts pretty young. I think the first one I was like 18. This young dumb kid, I screwed up on just an absolute mega giant, which kind of got me hooked. And then
the bow?
Yeah. I messed up on like a 350, 370 bull at like 40 yards. 18, 19 years old, didn't know what I was doing, didn't know when to draw, all that kind of stuff, and just screwed the pooch on that one. But then the following year, maybe it was a year after that, I went back and I shot my first elk, which was a frontal shot, down the pipe kind of thing. I shot it at 6 feet. So that kind of hook, line, and sinker got me the whole way. I mean, when you get a bull elk basically charging you, and I shot him on the move at, shorter, definitely not me to nick away. I mean, more like me to Scott. And yeah, it was insane. Like,
you ever see that video of that kid that shot that one there, and the elk just stood there and was just pouring blood out?
Yeah, that was nothing like mine. Mine like ran me over. I had blood on my boots when that was all over.
I would have had to clean my shorts out.
Yeah, like so he was chasing a cow, and the cow actually hit me on I was full draw because they were moving, and I was full draw, out, like this, and like she ran past me on my left hand side and bumped into me and like startled me. I was like, oh my God, what just happened? And I turned back and he was like 3 feet off the end of my bow, and I just pulled I never aimed. Like I literally was just, it was so close.
That close.
Like
That's like a hip shot.
Did you like leave your underwear out there in the woods, or did you take them back with shit?
I had to like sit down. Like, I mean, like he like kept running and I like literally like crouched down and I'm like shaking and putting my bow down. And, like the adrenaline rush was just insane. And yeah, since then I killed another one with my bow. I've never killed an elk with a rifle. I've killed 2 with my bow. So
okay,
and they're not big bulls. They're both through 4x4, 4x5,
bigger than mine
stuff. But for Midwest guy, that's an elk's an elk, and any elk with a bow is a trophy.
Oh yeah,
cow, bull, whatever. I mean, it's so hard to get inside that 50-yard range kind of thing to have an opportunity to kill one.
Right.
So yeah, it's a win in my book.
Are you doing any guiding?
Yeah. So I work with Montana Hunt Company, which is the sweatshirt I'm wearing. We, go and they manage a ton of ranches out in Montana. So if anyone's interested in a guided elk hunt out of Montana, I've been working with these guys now for, I kind of facilitated helping book some trips 2 years ago. And then this year I actually took a job guiding for those guys. And we had just an absolute blast, so much fun, a lot of super close encounters. The picture up on the screen right now is a 330 bull that I killed with a client. No, he killed it. I didn't kill it, but, he shot that bull with a bow in, late September. And then, I was out there and I had some tags. So I killed a big mule deer. And then had a couple of my clients kill some really nice bulls with the rifle too. So it was a lot of fun, man. Just getting to play on some super fun ranches where, low pressure, Montana Hunt Company, we do a great job of not over pressuring our animals. We kind of pride ourselves on, any given week on the ranch that I'm guiding on. I actually took the head guide position there for this upcoming season. It's 45,000 acres of pristine, hunting property. And at any given point in time, there's only 2 elk hunters on it. So you basically have, half of 45,000 acres per guy to play around on. And usually our elk herd on that property was kind of varying from anywhere from 300 head to over 1,000 a day. So you had your pick of the litter for the most part of the season. There's a lot of animals around, a lot of fun, but obviously getting in on them and killing one's not easy. It's
well, a question to go along with that. So like when you're doing the guiding stuff, like obviously I'm always interested as well. What do you need for points? Because obviously, let's just say I want to go right now.
So Montana, since it's private land, and if you book through Montana Hunting Company,
do they provide tags? Is that a thing?
We get like landowner preference points. So if you can draw pretty much every year if you paying for a hunt with a landowner preference point. But then the thing is you can only hunt with the outfitter that you get that tag through. Okay. So if you drew that tag, if you are unsuccessful with us for whatever reason, ideally not, but if you're unsuccessful, you can't take that tag and then go hunt public land after.
Yeah.
If you want a public land hunt elk in Montana, there's a couple different options. You can get a combo tag, which is an elk deer combo license, or you can get just an elk tag or just a deer tag. And they kind of vary. It's usually like 1 to 3 points to draw those kind of thing, depending on, unit and stuff like that. And some of the areas that they are special unit draws. So you have to draw a specific unit, which can take a little bit longer depending on which part of the state you're trying to hunt. If you're trying to hunt like the eastern half of Montana, which is like the breaks, or the south, we call it the southeast, the southeast corner of Montana is where, some of the biggest bulls in the country come out of. That can take a little bit longer to get those special units. But
you guys provide food, everything.
Yeah,
at the lodge.
It's full ordeal. Okay. It depends a little bit on which property you're going to. Our price range is, I think our base level elk hunt's somewhere around $8,000 for a fully guided trip. And that's going to be probably on one of our ranches that you're probably going to be out of wall tents. You might be doing some horseback stuff like that. And then as you kind of climb the ladder to a little bit nicer, lodges and stuff like that, then you're, touching the $12,000, $14,000, $18,000 mark for a trip. But those are, fully guided, full amenities, food, everything is included. You're going to, be riding around in a really nice UTV. And
how many days?
Usually they're all like 6-day hunts, 5 to 6 day hunt, depending. Right. Kind of depends on when you book it, and I know we do a few shorter hunts. We'll do some 3-day hunts and stuff like that as well. If we got to fill guys in here and there, but for the most part, it's all basically 6 days. It's 7 nights, 6 days, or 6 nights, 5 days. I don't know.
And can you keep any sheds that you find along the way?
That's a good question.
Yeah. We found 2 really nice sheds. The one client, they found a matching set,
and they get to keep them, because I know some ranches, if you find them, they don't let you keep them unless you pay for them.
No,
so I talked to a ranch on that, and they said, no, you can hunt. You get done. You want a shed hunt? We get them.
Yeah, we're pretty lenient on that.
With them or something.
That's it. Yeah, you get pictures. They won't let you keep them. They said you can pay for them because they're all worth money, because some outfits will sell them.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we'll let you guys keep them. These guys are paying such a premier top dollar. We're one of the, I think we are the biggest outfitter in Montana. So we, the clientele base that we're typically dealing with, and the price they're paying for hunts, typically I know this year we let a couple guys that found some sheds take their sheds. And some guys don't want to pay for the shipping on the sheds. A lot of the guys are flying in, and to ship a set of sheds, is not cheap. It's $300-$400 to get it home, depending on where you're coming from. So some guys don't want to keep them. Obviously, probably depends on the set that you would find, or the shed you'd find, kind of thing, or where you're coming from. If you drove, it's obviously a lot easier to throw it in the back of a pickup if you're driving out there. But some of these guys that are flying in from the East Coast and stuff, they're probably not going to take a shed horn back with them just because of the price tag. But it's a lot of fun. And, for our clients that tag out early, we'll take them out and we'll just run them around on UTVs and try to shoot coyotes and stuff like that. So I took the one guy out. We went trout fishing the one day, messed around on the rivers for a little bit because he was done early. So we have a lot of fun. It's a good group of people, actually the owner of the company, Wayne Wilcox, is the owner of Montana Hunting Company. One of them, I think there's 2. But his wife and his mother-in-law actually cooked for us every day. So we were eating absolutely amazing food the whole time, which is necessary when you're, putting on 10 miles a day.
Yeah,
so,
right.
But the Western hunting thing, I mean, in terms of hunting, that's what I like doing. I like doing the out West stuff, big game, anything elk. Elk is definitely probably my favorite big game to do. I haven't gotten into a lot of the other stuff yet, just because points are kind of tough to come by nowadays. I've been buying points in 5-6 states for a couple different things, between whitetails and mule deer and elk and moose, and starting to play around with the idea of applying for some sheep stuff, but that's kind of asterisk on what I'm doing right now, because that's a lot of commitment and money. So
see, for me, I got to get an antelope out of the way. I did that bow trip, and I really enjoyed it. But I want an antelope really bad. I want an elk too, but in the certain circumstances of going with people, I've got a couple buddies that want to do it. And to me, obviously, I'm different than most. I get people, they want the hunt, they want the experience. It's all fun. If you don't tag out, for me, when I'm doing something, taking vacation, I'm spending the money, I want to give myself the best success rate. Right. And when I tell people about doing a hunt like this with them, everybody's like, "Oh, that's a lot of money." And I'm like, "It is, but you're putting yourself in the best situation to be successful." Now, don't get me wrong. People get them on public. If you have friends that are out there,
it's a really low percentage rate, though. Your non-resident success rate for archery elk hunting in Montana is less than 10%.
Yeah,
it's 9%.
And now imagine if someone does that 4 or 5 years in a row and they don't get one. Yeah. You pretty much, and again, going with you, it's not a guarantee, obviously, but you put yourself in the situation where you spend 4 to 5 years. Yeah, you're learning the unit, which is great. Don't get me wrong. But if you want the most success, I always try telling my buddies and stuff that keep talking about doing an elk hunt. I said, I'd rather go with an outfit. I said, I don't know the mountains.
For your first time, so I'm a little different because my dad's been doing it for 40
different.
years.
I've never been elk hunting in my life.
So for someone who's looking to get into it, I would recommend as well, probably for your first trip, the cost of the trip is going to be made up in the information and the knowledge you're going to gain from your guide.
And you still have the best chance to get one too. Right. So it's like, if you don't get one, it does suck, but at least you learn. Going by yourself, you might be doing it wrong the entire time.
My dad,
and you don't know it.
My dad, it took him 18 years to kill his first bull.
That's what I'm saying.
18 years,
Think
every
of the money.
single year. That's back when tags were easy to get.
Yeah.
That's when they could get tags, pretty much over the counter back then. And he went for the whole entire 80s and 90s without killing a bull.
In 18 years, it's at least $1,000 a trip.
I think he went 18 years without killing with his bow. I think he killed 1 or 2 with his rifle in that time frame. But like with a bow, trying to kill them
that's 2 different trips.
It is probably one of the most difficult animals in the country to kill with your bow. They are so smart. They are so in tune with their surroundings. They know what's going on. The wind will screw you.
So they got great noses too.
20 times better than the whitetail.
Really?
Oh yeah, it's insane. They'll wind you from 400 yards, 500 yards.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, they are.
Think about how much larger their olfactory system.
I guess, but I mean, like, it's, I don't know. I didn't expect it to be like that.
Oh yeah, no, it's crazy. Like, you make a little bit of a wrong movement, you do anything wrong with an elk, and they're gone. Like,
how do you guys stay scent free then? Because I mean, think about it. You guys are hiking and sweating your butts off.
We don't try to really like stay scent free. The whole like scent killer thing is not really something we do. I kind of got onto it this year, but Nose Jammer is a product that we kind of utilize. And it's not a scent killer; it's a scent masker.
Blocker, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's that vanilla.
Yep. It smells like cookies.
It does.
It's delicious. I love it. Like
it's delicious.
Yeah, it smells a lot. Better than a dude after hiking.
Yeah, I might have to try it again because I used it once. Nose Jammer once.
I don't know what it does for whitetails, but I know for elk, like it's weird. So like an elk will bark like a dog if they wind you. It's really weird. Yeah, they'll.
What does it sound like?
I'm not going to try to imitate it.
I want to know kind of now. Like,
it's kind of like, it's like if you've ever heard a bugle, a bugle's like, like the bark is like,
really?
Like it sounds like a yipper dog woofing at
Chihuahua,
you.
yeah. Poodle.
Kind of like this high pitched, quick little, like, it's like their warning call for the whole herd. Well, typically, like, if you hear that and you're just not running scent blocker, like, they do that once or twice, and the whole group of elk will just take off.
How far do they go?
2 miles sometimes. Like, I mean, they'll go down a ravine and up the next one in 45 seconds. It's insane.
We got a question.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's not a question. That's a yelp.
Right. Drew Biskiming, co-host extraordinaire. Knowing it's loaded, what's been your most memorable trip, whether hunting and or fishing?
Ooh, that's going to be a tough one.
Most memorable trip.
I say do one of each. Because that's a hard one to do with guidance.
Tips and tactics here.
Okay.
Yeah, that's so hard. I mean, my most memorable, hunting trip was when I shot that one at 6 feet because I kind of left this up.
How do you beat
You can't beat that. Like that's like top.
That's just ridiculous.
Top echelon of like close quarters bow hunting kind of thing. And to make it even better, like not better, but almost worse, I missed a really big bull the night before I shot over the top of one. So like that whole that week or so was just action-packed and fun as could be. Like my dad and I, after I killed mine, we went back in because we backpack in. We do a lot of backcountry stuff, and he got on a bull where we had a bull just screaming in our face at 80 yards and just never could get him to get that extra 30, 40 yards to get a shot kind of thing. So that was so fun for hunting. So that was probably my best hunting experience. Fishing wise, oh my god. I did a giveaway trip that was really fun with one of my buddies, kid I know from tournaments. He won the trip, Chris, and we went out on the bay, and I broke my PB that day. That was probably one of my better days on the bay. I had they were just hanging out with me like for the day and trying to learn and stuff. So I was fishing a lot more than I typically would on a guide trip. And it was one of my best days ever. I think I had 5 over 29 with 3 over 30, a 31 and a half. And my personal best that day, and still my personal best on the bay was 32 and a half. Oh. And so that was just a, fight.
Spawned out?
Yeah, this was August.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, all my best fishing days walleye wise, in terms of like size and numbers, have all come in the summer. Like, but it's been this misconception of walleye fishing was always that like during the summer they were tough to catch, like because they typically went out deep and went into the basins and stuff like that and just off of deep structure, and they were just harder to catch. They didn't orient the bottom as much. They were suspended a lot. So for a lot of years, guys only caught them trolling, but since we got, live scope and stuff, we were able to target them suspended, and that was just a blast of a day. Damn. We just slaughtered some big fish. I mean, we had 15, 20 fish that day, all over 27. Like, nice. Just a pound fest. So,
another question here: more challenging, hunting a big buck or trying to catch that 30-inch walleye?
Ooh, that's
define big buck.
Yeah. I guess for me, echelon on a big buck would probably be 150 class. I'd say that's like kind of the mark for most people. So, man, I would say probably killing a big.
Well,
depending on where you are.
Yeah. It depends on the time of the month and everything. I mean, it all comes down to that. So, I mean, for walleyes,
if you can fish the best, I guess my opinion would be this: if you can hunt the 10 best days of the season, and you can fish the 10 best days of the season, I think you got a better shot at a trophy walleye in the 10 best days of the year than you do a trophy buck.
I mean, you got 1,000. That's the thing. I mean, it comes down to if you're hunting Buffalo County, 150 acres private land.
So, and that's what it is. That's where it comes down to. So it's like, okay, Green Bay is the upper echelon of walleye fishing. So you got, a body of water that's just a powerhouse that I'm fortunate to spend a ton of time on. That'd be the equivalent of me being able to hunt, Buffalo County for 3 months of the fall. So like
every day.
Right. So it's such a,
it's subjective.
Yeah. It's who you are, what your, terminology on a trophy is,
right.
And then
he did mention here, he said over 170. Which
walleye for sure.
Yeah,
in my opinion,
easier for sure. A 170-inch whitetail is just a stud. Like I've hunted my whole life. I've never seen a deer like that. Not in an area that I can legally kill it. Like I've seen some deer like that running around at night driving my truck to and from places. Like sure, I've seen some monster deer.
170 is kind of
those are
somewhat
a wet dream
level.
Those are unicorns. I mean, I would say. If you're putting the mark at 30-inch walleye, that's easily more obtainable than a 170. But if you're going to push that mark up to like that 32 mark on a walleye, then it's pretty equal. Because the difference between a 30 and a 32-inch walleye is huge.
I know personally.
Yeah.
Because I can't see it.
But a 28 to a 30, though.
That's not as crazy.
Right? Isn't that weird?
Right.
I mean, but like that jump.
Yes.
Once you get above 30.
Once you get above 30, I mean, you're talking, like when you're talking fishing wise, like you guys are talking in quarter or eighth inch increments.
Yeah.
Like, because they're not, that's just, they take forever to get that big. Yeah. And then, I mean, like on Green Bay, like those 30-inch fish are 20 to 25 years old. Those 32-inch fish are at that, if not.
And they die too. That's the thing. They do die. Like everybody thinks like, oh, they get caught and kept. No, they also like us. They die. Like they're gonna go out there and.
Do they slow down?
Yeah.
Birth rate so much.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's just like a big deer where like once they hit, like there's certain deer, they hit that 6-year-old mark,
5.5 to 7.
That's where they're going to peak. And then after that, a deer will regress and fish will do the same thing. We had a 27-inch tagged fish like 3 years ago where when I caught it, it was 27 inches, and 2 years prior, it was 27 and a half. So it was actually on a regression. So it never even made that 30-inch mark. Wow. It had started going downhill. Now, whether that's, a food issue or...
Got sick.
Yeah, some sort of parasite or something that got into it. It's just like deer. Like, to encounter fish or, bucks, elk, whatever, like... Any animal that makes it to that upper echelon of like true maturity at the biggest point it will ever be, the chances of you encountering it at that time frame is so slim. Like it just does not happen often. Like I fish some of the most premier walleye fisheries in the country for 175 to 200 days a year. And like, I don't encounter those fish all the time. Like there's no, you know, and when it happens, you just never know. Yeah. Like you never know. Like you were saying, one night you slam them, the next night you don't. Yep. So yeah, it's man, that's a good one. I really like that question. Like that was a good question.
If you guys have any other questions here, we're going to start getting into a little bit of some tips and tactics here real quick. We're not going to go too much longer here, but if you guys have any questions, definitely feel free to chime in here. But if you were to, why don't you throw out some tips and tactics, and maybe some of your, maybe start on a somewhat more basic level.
Yeah.
Well, in the system too, that's the thing. Like when you do these tips and tactics, river, lake,
exactly. Right.
Explain, because people are gonna be like, I can use this here. Well, sometimes those tactics in the river are 10 times better than the lake.
So I'll even make it a little bit more simple than that, right? Like, so for me, tips and tactics, like in terms of like when I'm breaking down a body of water on a given day, I would say that the biggest thing that most people would do, and let's just start with spring fishing, for example. So during the spring when guys are fishing, the number one mistake I see the guys make the most is they overwork their presentation way too much. So spring fishing, cold water specifically, typically you're going to want to work it way slower than you think you have to, no matter what you're using, whether you're using a jig and a minnow.
So you're not doing
you're not
snaps.
making big long streaks. You're not trying to move that bait 3 feet in the water at a time.
Very similar to ice fishing.
Yes, you're like
giving small.
Yes, I see it all the time on the river and the lake in the spring. When I'm watching guys around us, they're simply put not catching as many fish as what we typically do on a given day because they're overworking their presentation, whatever it is. It doesn't matter if it's a subtle presentation like a really small jig in a plastic or a larger presentation, more aggressive like a rip and wrap or something like that. They're going to overwork it 9 times out of 10 because they see a lot of stuff on social media. Oh, they're going to just crush it. Like it, most of my bites in the spring, I'm barely feeling a bite. Like they are pinning baits to bottom. Yep. They're tapping stuff. They're nipping. They're just really not aggressive. So for the spring, my best suggestion for everyone is whatever your confidence lure is, try just working it a little bit slower than you typically feel comfortable doing because it's going to work a lot better for you. When I can get that through, like, a lot of days with clients, it's a 2-hour process of me kind of, not trying to be a dick, but like pushing them to just, hey, like slow down. Yep. Like you're jigging your bait 2 feet at a time right now. And these fish don't want to move 6 inches. Yeah. So just,
there's times I barely get off bottom, like dink.
Yeah. Dink, yeah. You're just barely moving it. Yeah. Like so springtime my best suggestion for most people in the spring is slow down, just slow way down. That was over the weekend on the Mississippi River. Like the tactic was slow. Like it had to you were not trying to make that bait really work at all. You were just kind of putting it in their face and letting it be there, not working it past them.
So you really there's not even much of a cadence there. It's just a slow jig, right?
Yeah. Cadence, for me, jigging, when I'm, so like a jig presentation would be like something with, a lead head jig, right? Whether you're jigging a minnow, hair jig, stuff like that. It's going to be real short, like 6-inch lifts. Like, so blade bait is one of my favorite springtime baits. I love fishing 1/4 or 3/8 ounce blade baits in the spring. I get a ton of my stuff painted up by Viper Tackle, and they do a great job. And color can make a big difference, but a lot of times it's all about just barely moving that bait enough to get the vibration. So like when you work a blade bait, you're going to feel the vibration in your rod. And a lot of people think that they really got to move that rod a lot to feel that vibration. And the matter of fact statement is you really don't. You only got to move your rod about 6 inches to a foot to really get vibration. And there's a lot of times, especially if you're dealing with wind and current and different scenarios where you might not even feel it vibrate, but you got to kind of just trust in your gear and tactic that it's working and they're going to get it. And then the other thing in the spring too is like, A lot of guys are going to work a bait. It's going to hit bottom. And they're immediately going to move that bait again. I like to, a lot of times in the spring, let that bait sit for a second. So I'll pop a bait and it'll hit bottom. And
even a jig?
Yep.
The middle?
Everything. I will let that bait sit on bottom for just a little bit longer. Not letting it drag around and get snagged up and stuff.
Yeah.
But if I'm working that bait, like I'll work it and then I'll let it hit bottom and then I'll hesitate for a second, then reel up a little slack and work it again. So it's just, slowing that cadence down in the spring is going to be the best opportunity for you to catch a big one. Same thing, like if you're night fishing in the spring, a lot of guys throw stick baits and stuff like that in the spring, and I see it all the time. Guys are just casting and they either just crank it in or they're throwing a lot of twitches and pauses in. My best spring cadence for a jerk bait or a P10 or a husky jerk or whatever it is that you're using, cast it out, work it down, right? Like get it down to the depth that you want that bait running at, and then honestly, hold it, especially if you're fishing current and you're casting like down into the current and you're bringing it like back up current. You'll cast it down, you work it down into the current, and then you just hold the rod and you don't move it. And you do that for 10, 15 seconds.
It's so hard to do that because myself, I can't do that because it's just like
you just sit there,
painfully.
You sit there and hold it, and then a lot of times all I'll do to like move that bait forward is I won't even reel the reel. I'll just take my rod and I'll just pull that bait like a foot forward, and then I'll hold it again. And then I'll pull it forward really slow and then hold it. And then I'll reel my slack up and then I'll do it again. But again, it's a presentation where like a lot of times, like when we're casting, stick baits up by the dam in De Pere, like even the guys in my boat, they'll take 3 or 4 casts to my one.
I'm that guy.
Yeah.
Hello.
But I'll outfish everyone else.
Yep, I've had that.
3-1.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to chase stuff in the spring. So in the spring, work your bait slow. That's my best suggestion for anyone fishing, springtime stuff. Question?
Yeah, is that for everywhere or just like up here in Wisconsin?
Anytime cold water is a ordeal. So if you're fishing cold water, and when I say cold water, I'm going to say if you're fishing pre-spawn walleyes, you're going to want to work a bait slow.
It's like 40 or less, 40 temps or less.
45 or less.
Yeah.
So most walleyes are going to spawn between 40 and 48 degrees. There's, a little bit surface temp to bottom temp is different. Yeah. So like when they're exactly spawning, it kind of changes. And especially too, like you're sitting in 8 feet of water, they probably going to be spawning up at 2-3 feet of water. So there's a big difference between where you're catching them and where they're actually doing business kind of thing. So like, yeah, it's a big thing where, in cold water, I work my bait as slow as possible, whether it's the spring or the fall. The fall, you can get them a little bit more aggressive because during the fall, they're actually actively feeding to try to put on a feed bag. So there's times in the fall where they will eat a bait worked pretty aggressively. But in the springtime, typically, or really any cold water situation, I'm just working everything as slow as I possibly can. Like it's painful. It is. And jig weight is a big thing.
Yes.
A lot of guys work a too heavy a bait way too often. Like whether it's they're just not geared up right or whatever it is.
What's the ideal weight for that colder water?
It's all based on. So for me, when I'm picking a jig weight for example, river fishing in the spring when the fish are in the tributaries in on Green Bay, whether it's, the Fox or Oconto or Peshco or Marinette, well, technically Menominee River, but if they're in those systems, I'm going to try to pick the lightest possible bait to keep bottom contact without like pounding bottom. So like if everyone else is running a 3/8 ounce, I'm going to try to run a quarter.
See, I always stick to 3/8. And actually this time I fished with Isaac, I was using 3/8. We were catching sheep's head and walleyes. Remember we went down to the mouth in Oshkosh?
Yep.
And I could not make the smaller jig work. I could not catch a fish. He is pounding walleye after walleye. I'm like, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
It was a small jig.
Fall rate.
No, that was spring though, remember?
Yeah, but it's fall rate. So how fast a bait is falling is a massive thing, right? Like, so like when that bait is, most walleyes and fish in general, like when you're doing any sort of jigging cadence where the rod's going up and the bait's coming down kind of thing, where that bait's going up and down, everything is dictated by how fast that bait is falling through the water. Like that can be absolutely paramount to catching more fish. And the difference between like a 16th of an ounce can make a big difference.
Yep.
Like there's been days where I'm standing next to a buddy on a riverbank, you know, right about now fishing. Excuse me. And I've only got 1/4 ounce jigs, and that's, you know, a good weight for the, you know, like fishing. But like my one buddy, Marcus, he loves running like 3/16, which is a 16th less than a 1/4. And he will outfish me 5-1 sometimes. And it's the same bait. It's a yellow jig head, purple chartreuse, freaking plastic. And I'm running 1/4, he's running 3/16, and he's catching twice as many fish as me, and we're working it the exact same way. And that bait's just falling a little bit slower, a little bit more hang time in the water column, and those fish are just crushing it. Like it's the biggest.
Yeah, it's such a finesse thing where it's
the
subtleties.
Yeah, the subtleties in fishing is where it really separates good anglers from great anglers. Like
right, and that ability to change it up.
Yep.
You know, when one thing isn't working.
Yep. Yeah,
So
you got to stay on your toes.
You were saying you were using that time. You were using what, 3/8?
I was, yeah, and I switched to what he was using. But the thing is, I didn't do it like he's done it. I've never really done that. And we were casting crawlers. We were in Oshkosh there, right by the mouth. And we anchored up, and he was pounding them, not me. I caught one on a dead stick. Remember, I had it set up the edge. It was like a 23-incher, and we let him go because we were pre-fishing for a tournament. And I was casting up like, I can't catch anything, like doing it wrong because I didn't practice it. And that's the thing, too. Like when people see someone doing it, you got to practice it, and I didn't learn it. I didn't practice it, so I didn't catch anything. He probably caught 12, 15 walleyes, and I caught 2. And one was off the dead stick, and one was magically, it hit bottom. Like, I can't. Oh, there's a fish.
Yeah, having the right gear setup's important too.
It's
right?
huge.
Like, you know, making sure that you have the right rod, reel, line, all that.
That's actually another question. Like, so we can talk about jigs and all that kind of stuff. But what do you run for rods and line and reels? And
my
stuff?
workhorse, like my go-to rod and reel setup is a 7-foot rod, medium light action, extra fast. Like that's my go-to rod for walleye fishing, pretty much from day one open water till freeze up. Like that's the rod that I'm gonna run all the time. And then I'm honestly way heavier on line than what 99% of guys are running. Most guys are gonna run 8 to 12 pound braid to a similar type leader, right? That's pretty common. I run 20 pound braid to usually like a 12 to 15, if not 17 pound leader.
That helps the feeling, right? The sensitivity.
I think it just helps slow the bait from falling.
That too,
So
yeah.
it's thicker line. It doesn't fall through the water column as quickly. Now, there's times where I do like 10 pound. If I'm fishing really, really fast current, like on like the Mississippi, for example, like if you're fishing really, really quick current over the tops of wing dams, 10 pound line is going to just help you cut that current a little bit more. But if you're not fishing current, I like heavier line because I think it just hovers that bait a little bit longer. It just holds it up in the water column just a split second
Heavier
longer.
or lighter?
Heavier line.
Okay.
Because think about it. So like a heavier diameter line's thicker.
Takes longer to
so
go
it's
through.
slower coming down through the water column. So I think that, and this is just, again, like this is my personal experience. This isn't fact by any means. Like everyone does everything a little bit different.
Yeah.
But that's just what I like to do. And then flip side for me is I'm always targeting the biggest fish in the system. I'm trying to catch those 27-inch plus walleyes all the time. So I like to be geared up for those fish because there's a lot of times too where I'm tangling with 35 plus inch pike or 50-inch muskies. And, you know, we're always throwing a little bit bigger baits or a little bit, you know, larger presentations, trying to catch these bigger fish, which is awesome. It a lot of times means we're probably catching a few less fish sometimes than a lot of people could if you were downsizing bait size and stuff like that. But it definitely, you know, it just helps me handle fish better.
You know what's funny though is the way you kind of talked about that right there. Is it's not so indifferent from deer hunting,
Right.
Do you want to go after the big buck?
Right.
Do you want to go and hunt and see a lot of deer, or do you want to see the right deer?
Exactly.
You know,
exactly.
So like you're targeting the big fish,
Right.
And that, like, you can go out and hunt and sit on a field edge on you know, of an alfalfa field,
Yep.
and see all the deer.
Yep.
But are you going to see the right deer? Are you hunting that big buck?
Right,
You know,
right.
It's kind of the same thing.
And we talk about all the time, big fish, like truly big fish, don't hang out with little fish.
No.
A lot of times, I mean, if you're like, especially if we're pre-fishing for tournaments and stuff like that, like if we're catching in an area a bunch of 18 to 24 inch fish, that 30 incher is not going to be around that same area. You might, I'm not saying that there's not one in there.
Yeah.
But when
you want the big
fishing,
ones.
we need 5.
Yeah.
You need,
and that's the thing people don't understand. Like when I fished with you last year in that tournament, I was saying, we're not catching anything. I don't want to do this anymore. I want to catch fish. And you looked at me and you said, we don't need fish today, Nick. We need
5 bites.
Fish.
Yeah.
We need 5 bites. We're not going for bites. We're not going for fun. This is a tournament. Yeah. And we kept casting. I did have that decent one on that we lost at the boat.
Yeah.
But it was that thing is just, we fished there the whole time, busted our butts, and we did decent. We lost. You lost a nice one. I lost a nice one. That would have put us.
We were 2 bites away from being like in the top 10.
Yeah.
Like we literally, I don't know where we ended up. We were like 40th or something like that.
Yeah, which wasn't bad. But
we were 2 bites away. It was a tough bite, and we were 2 bites away from cashing a check, basically.
Yeah.
And that's like when if we want to talk about tournaments a little bit, like the mentality with tournament fishing compared to like a day-to-day fisherman going out is just totally opposite.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going out tournament fishing looking to try to put up 50 fish in a day. That's not what I'm going to do. Like I'm going to lock myself into a mindset of I'm going to go and chase 5 big bites all day long. And if it takes me 8 hours, I'm either going to get those 5 bites and I'm going to come in as a hero and I'm going to win the tournament, or I'm going to be in 95th place because I didn't get my 5 bites.
Yeah.
Like, there's no in between. Like, and that's my mindset.
You see that a lot of times, even with bass fishing, that these guys are like, well, they're plucking bass left and right. And they're like, you're not bringing anything of any size out. You know?
Right.
It does build confidence. I'll say that, because you go all day long. Get it. For me personally, I go all day long and I'm not catching fish. I lose all my finesse, all my feel. I'm like, I'm done. This is it. I'm over.
And that's the mental game that a lot of guys like. When it comes to tournament fishing, I would say the number one biggest thing with tournament fishing when it comes to that is it's all about your mental fortitude and being able to go through a 3-hour lull without a bite. With nothing, with not a bite, not a fish on your screen. There's nothing going on.
Yeah.
But you know that if you find that right one, you're going to have a crack at, putting the right fish in the boat kind of thing. And that's a tough mindset for a lot of people to lock into. A lot of people, like when they tournament fish, they kind of put themselves in this situation where they're like, well, I'm going to go try to catch my 5 and then I'll go look for a big one.
Yep.
But the problem is like, and this is the way I look at it as well. Okay, yeah, if I caught my 5 first, that's fine, but I just wasted 3 hours of my day.
I did the same thing about that swamp dog tournament the first time I ever did it. I knew it was windy, and I jigged up. We caught our 5, boom, in the first hour. I'm like, hey, we can go for bigger fish. And my buddies wanted to catch fish, and in my mind, that's what I wanted to do. And it screwed us out of the tournament. We went downriver. We caught bigger fish. The last hour, I was catching bigger fish. It screwed us because we spent 3 hours wasting our time with that. Yeah. We caught 5. Hey, look, we got our 5. Yeah. And then I went downriver, and I got rid of those 5.
You should have been sitting downriver all day.
And I got rid of those 5. It didn't even count.
Taking the extra 3 hours down there for those 1 or 2 bites that you need to win.
I messed up.
All my best finishes have came, like, almost there's only been 1 tournament that I've won where we cracked them, like, the whole day. There's only been 1 time where it was, like, maybe twice. 2 times where I was like, I'm going to smoke fish all day long. I'm going to sort through these things and I'm going to catch my, big fish limit. Yeah. Like the rest of it, like all my other wins is like my 1 win. I got 5 bites the first day and I got 6 the second day. So I got 11 bites and 16 hours of fishing. Like that was it. And then like for head to head with the way that format was and everything, like in 5 days of tournament fishing, which they were only 5-hour days, but it was 25 hours of fishing. I only caught 3 fish over 2 pounds in 5 days of tournament. And in practice, I never touched a 2-pounder. I fished for 8 days for 3 bites. Like that is so hard to do.
Yeah.
Like, and keep yourself in it mentally without just spinning out and going crazy. Oh God.
Well, that was a successful show because Sandra Robinson's praying for all of us.
I saw that.
Sweet.
I just blocked her. We just had like some.
Was that the
weird,
question you
like-
were just having come up? Oh, okay.
Yeah, you see all that
Yeah.
right there coming up there? Yeah, I just blocked that.
Just
Like,
pray for us. March 30th, me and Isaac are in a tournament, so pray
you get
for us
these
to win
weird-
that.
you
That'd
get
be
this
that'd be
weird stuff.
$12,000 right there. If we win that March 30th, him and I.
Yeah.
And Sandra's blocked.
That's funny.
But anyways, yeah, I think this is probably a good time to wrap it up. You know, Isaac, I'd love to have you back on again. Because,
Absolutely.
man. I think we could dive into just the big game hunting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could do a
We'll
whole
definitely
show
do a
just
whole
that.
show on that.
And then we'll split that one up into tips and tactics for summertime walleye fishing.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
Yep.
that, because there's a lot of questions I have for that. Because
Absolutely.
I've spent some time up on the flowages and stuff.
Okay.
And then I'd love to get into some of that kind of action. So
Well, that again, knowing him coming up again is asking people ahead of time, hey, what questions do you have?
Right,
Bring them
exactly.
to
Yeah.
that, and we'll ask them beforehand. We'll write them down, and then we'll go through them.
yeah, exactly.
Perfect.
Yeah, we'll do it that way. Absolutely. That's a really good idea. So,
Yeah.
well, I appreciate you joining us here in the studio.
Absolutely.
Maybe
Yeah, thank
a
you.
long trip here up to West Bend.
Oh yeah, all of 20 minutes. It was great.
The Mecca. All right, guys. We want to thank you guys, everybody who's followed us tonight, and everybody who's going to watch this episode later on. We appreciate you guys as followers. If you have not yet, make sure you check out our YouTube page and subscribe to us there. Luke's got the link right there for you guys.
Also, don't forget, if you're looking to book a trip,
Absolutely.
smallies and walleyes.
What is your, if they want to, hook up with you?
Best option is Facebook and Instagram for me is kind of like my bread and butter, social media base and how I get most of my clientele booked up. Otherwise, if anyone wants to, shoot me a text message or something like that, my number's on both those pages as well.
Sure. So those pages again are
Isaac Lakich Fishing. So pretty straightforward.
They can reach you that way.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's the easiest way for me to do it. It keeps it all in one place.
that makes sense.
I've thought about doing the whole website thing and trying to do it that way, but the more and more stuff that I add to my life, it just gets more and more hectic.
Honestly, nowadays outside of social media, I don't think websites are as big of a thing.
No, I don't think so. Honestly, I think social media is the bigger thing.
It
Yeah,
really is.
that's what
You
I've
can handle
booked.
so
Like
much of it.
99% of all of my stuff comes through mainly Facebook. Really, is kind of the way that most of my business is done, is through my Facebook page, and then some of it comes from Instagram as well. But the outreach on Instagram just doesn't seem quite as well as what Facebook does. So.
Well, also too, besides even fishing, you're still doing the live scope lessons. So if you have a live scope, you don't know what you're doing, you want your settings set up. He will even, if you're still doing it, you jump in their boat.
Yep.
So not even jump in my boat, and I'll show you how to do it. I will jump in your boat.
Yeah.
Isaac will jump in your boat, do everything on all your electronics while you're there. Take videos, whatever you want to save it in case something happens to it. He'll teach you in your own boat.
Yep.
Everything's set up for you. You don't have to sit there and memorize it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that was actually the thing, like I was bringing up before, like with the live scope education, and
Yep.
electronics education. I didn't understand. I didn't realize that you actually will just do it in.
Yeah, so I'll do it either way. So like if guys want to hop in my boat and see how I set everything up and like how I run my boat and the reasonings why I have my boat set up the way it is. So like a lot of guys who are looking at getting boats will hop in with me and they'll see how everything's set up and they'll learn from me that way in terms of what I'm doing. And then there's other guys that I'll hop in their boat with the setups that they feel comfortable with or what they think is the best option.
Yeah.
And then I'll, try to work with them in terms of like explaining to them the best way to run their setup based on their fishing tactics. Cause everyone fishes differently. Like the tactics and the, exact way that I like to chase them is not the way that a lot of guys chase them. So like for a lot of guys, it pushes them out of their comfort zone. So what I do is, hopping in their boat, I will cater to, I'll ask them a lot of questions of like, okay, what do you typically do when you're fishing? How do you typically fish? Are you a spot locker? Are you a drifter? Are you a troller? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Let's cater to this and let me show you what, in my opinion, is the best way to utilize live electronics for your situation.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Which
and I don't think anybody else really does it, honestly. It's like get in my boat or don't.
Right. It's honestly a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It puts me in a lot of different rigs through a year. I get to hop into, I've been in every single boat brand over the last 4 years. Like I've gotten to jump in with all sorts of different people and get to hang out with them for a day. And it's really cool. Like a lot of times what I like to do with those types of situations when I'm hopping in with them, I like them to kind of take the lead and take like control and put us in positions or places or spots that they want to fish. And then I try to show them how to better fish those spots.
Fish their spots. Yeah.
Spots that
they're already confident in, right? Like, so it's areas or tactics that these guys like fishing. And then I can help them become better at their spots they're already doing, as opposed to them trying to hop in with me and I go and take them and do something that, like, there's a lot of bites that I do that they're very technical and like you got to be very exact with what you're doing, which for a lot of people can be kind of intimidating and it spins them out a little bit and they just can't replicate it by themselves. But if I hop in their boat and then show them how to do it their way kind of thing, it just helps them ease into what I like. You know, I'll show them how to do it their way and then I'll tell them what I'm doing and then they can kind of bridge that gap a little bit quicker.
Sure.
Makes it fun.
Yeah. Yeah. That's all good stuff, man. All right, guys. Well, with that said, Isaac, again, thanks again.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me
here today. Looking forward to having you back on the show again.
Yeah,
we'll
let's
get
do
into
it.
some more conversation. Nick, thanks again for coming and co-hosting.
Absolutely.
Once again, like you know, this is number 6, I think it is. For you.
Something like that.
Something like that. So
it's okay. Turkey Hun's coming up. So
we got some shows coming up on that for sure.
We got to go shoot and scoot one again.
Want to do that again?
Absolutely.
Drew's going to be here for that. That's his bread and butter.
What season did you get, by the way?
I don't even know.
Oh, I got A.
I gotta go look at it.
We gonna tie A again like last year?
Probably. You gonna hit one this year?
No, we don't talk about that one. We don't talk about that one.
All right, guys. Until next time, we appreciate you all. Check us out on YouTube. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Till next time, always outdoors.